What's going on, everyone? It's Grant, and I am getting demonetized by YouTube. I make like 20 cents a day, which doesn't really help. But in all honesty, it kind of does help. When we do the lure giveaways, I'm able to use that money towards shipping you your lures. I'm not able to put out enough content, and so I got an email from YouTube saying, hey, you're done making money. Sad face. But it's all good. So I'm going to be doing some more videos like this because I'm not able to get out and fish. We've got plenty of snow here in Minnesota, and I'm not really big into ice fishing. Some of you are. I'm not, but I'd like to try it someday. I've never done it. It just kind of freaks me out as I'm standing on frozen water. Anyway, tonight I'm going to talk about my gear that I use for tossing big swim baits. Many of you have asked what gear I use. A lot of you have commented in the videos of my reels and the rods that I'm using, and the line as well. So tonight I'm going to kind of give you hopefully more of an in-depth view of the reels that I use, of the rods that I use, the line that I use, and hopefully this will help you guys out if you're new to using swim baits, or if you've been using swim baits for a while. I've been using swim baits, big swim baits, for about 3.5, 4 years now. I got into it. I think it was actually 3 years ago now. And I tell you what, guys, using big swim baits, these big bass just love the big swim baits. And so I would not give it up for anything. I used to use a lot of conventional gear, had about 12 different setups, and I actually sold everything just to get into doing some swim baits. Let's talk about some gear tonight. There are a lot of great companies out there. I haven't really gotten into Shimano much, even though I hear so many people love Shimano. And I've had two Shimano reels. I had the Shimano Cardiff 400, and then I also had the Calcutta B 400, and both were really great reels. I sold them. I used to get into the phases of just buying new reels and trying out new reels, and finally I think I found what I'm looking for. But when I'm tossing slower swim baits, I like a lower gear ratio. Okay, so I'm talking more of in the fives. If I'm fishing a big 8-inch Huddleston, if it's cold, I gotta go with the slower gear ratio. One of the issues I have with the slower gear ratios is they're great for fishing slow, but here's some advice that I would give you. You can always, if you're to go with a higher gear ratio, you can always slow it down. With the lower gear ratios, like this Revo Toro S that I have, which is Abu Garcia, great reel, absolutely love it. It's super smooth, but you can only reel so fast. And obviously it's just kind of annoying if you want to pick up the pace a little bit. However, if you were to go with a 6:3 gear ratio or a 7:1 gear ratio, some of the faster ratios, you can always slow it down. So I think my next purchases will be faster than, I believe that this is a 5.31. This is mainly a muskie reel. Okay, obviously when you're throwing the big swim baits, you use muskie reels, but I absolutely love this reel. One thing I love and have loved about all the Abu Garcia reels that I've owned is that they are just super smooth. I was using Daiwa, and I've had the Daiwa Alexas, and a lot of people rave about the Daiwa Alexas. I just haven't been the biggest fan of them. Actually, it's mainly one reason that I don't like them is the two reels that I've had, both of them have engaged when, or the click has engaged right here, the thumb bar has engaged both times in the both 300 reels that I've had from the Daiwa Alexas, and has ruined my gears. Okay, so every time you cast, does that all the time. It's engaged and it's grinded my gears down, and so every time I've reeled it, then you've got that subtle grind. And so I haven't really liked that about the Alexas, and maybe I've just had a couple that were a bad batch, but from what the reviews that I've read and talked to some others, there was just kind of a mechanical issue with the Alexa 300s. So I've kind of stayed away from those. Anything Abu Garcia, I fished Abu Garcia growing up, and I love Abu Garcia, and I still do. This Revo Toro S, that 5:3 ratio, I believe it has 20... I couldn't tell you how many pounds of drag it has on it, but I use it for my bass fishing, I use it for my muskie fishing. Also, when I'm out salmon fishing, I use it as well. One thing I prefer when salmon fishing, which I'll show you on my other reel here soon, is a clicker. And this one does not have a clicker. So, excuse me, if you guys ever salmon fish, I would suggest the reels with the clickers. and we can talk more about that in a later video, but this is mainly just for my big swim bait setups. If you're fishing slower baits, such as Huds, okay, Huddlestons, or anything slow in general, it's a great reel. But like I said, buying one again, I would probably go with the Revo Toro Beast. I've read some good reviews about that. Also, I've seen some poorer reviews about that. But this is a great reel. All right, let's move on to my next one. Wasn't sure what to think about this one when I ordered it. Okay, this is the Akuma Komodo stainless steel version. And this is a 6:3-to-1 or 6:4-to-1 gear ratio. But this reel has been really good to me. Really good to me. The only complaint I had about this one when I first got it wasn't very smooth. And usually a reason why, and I'll tell you why, it's smooth now, okay? It's very smooth now. Look at that. But a reason why, and the reason why this one wasn't smooth, was because I opened it up and it was just caked with grease. And there was just too much in there. So what I did was I washed it all out and I greased it and I lubed it up. And guys, it is super smooth. It is super smooth. I absolutely love this reel. And so I've read some reviews on it as well, and even before I bought it, and some people were complaining about that. I think one thing Akuma does is they just over grease their reels, and that's what they did with this one. There was one video I was watching that was saying that this one didn't cast that far, and guys, it casts really far. Like this actually, I was surprised when I saw that review because I'm like, this thing is probably just as good as this Revo Toro S, and just as good as the Daiwa Alexa I had when I was fishing that. So I don't know if I agree with that review, but I love this reel. It's got 22 to 25 pounds of drag. So if you're fishing the big muskies and you're also fishing salmon, big bass, guys, it's just such a great reel. So I love them. I love both of my reels. All right. Here is the very first rod that I have, and I'm going to continue to use this rod because it's great. And this is the Akuma Guide Select Swimbait stick, Swimbait series stick. This is the extra heavy 711, and lure size is 2 to 10 ounces. It's all preference, guys. A lot of guys, they'll like the softer tip in some rods. For me, I don't. I don't really care for the softer tip in rods. I like that heavier tip. And so this one has a heavier tip. It doesn't bend very well. And if you have a big fish on, it's going to bend. And so it does. I love this rod. Guys say it's a beginner rod, but I also would say that it is a rod that I will continue to use. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So you've heard. There is enough flexibility in it though. I don't want to say that there's any flexibility in it, because there is. But when you set that hook, you know, some guys, they do like that soft tip. Not me. I don't care for it. And so that made me purchase this one, Akuma. Okay, I kind of like Akuma, if you can't tell. SBX. Now, I was only able to fish this for a little bit, and this one actually has a softer bend in it than the Guide Select, but not super soft. Okay, so it's not going to bend all the way down like a lot of soft tip rods, but it is, once again, a great rod. It can chuck your big baits, 2 to 10 ounces, line rating 15 to 40 pounds. So guys, those are literally the only two rods that I use, the only two rods and reels that I use. I'm probably going to get a different reel, like I said, and I'm going to upgrade on that. But for the most part, those will handle your Huddlestons, they'll handle your Depths 250s, they'll handle your bigger baits. If you're going to go bigger than a Depths 250, I mean, the Depths 250 is a 6 ounce lure, so it's a big lure. They do make the bigger rods. I'm probably not going to go bigger than that. I'm just going to stick it with the Depths 250, my Huddlestons, some of the Savage Gear stuff, and honestly, I use this rod for muskies as well. Some guys are like, oh, you're crazy for doing that. Every single muskie that I've caught, which I've only caught 3 this year, hopefully more, especially living in Minnesota, a lot of big muskies here. I will continue to use these rods unless one of them breaks. Then I'll get a different one. Line. Okay, I've tried many different lines, and I prefer mono myself. A lot of guys will use braid. Some will use fluorocarbon. I use mono. Some guys, they like the braid. Braid doesn't have any stretch to it whatsoever, which I find a problem because if you're going to cast, and let's just say something happens, every time you set the hook with braid, there will be a kink in your reel. So, you know, every time, right where you set the hook with that fish, there's going to be just a little bit of a kink. Sometimes you forget about that. And you cast it, and it stops, and your lure just goes, see ya, flying. So I don't really use braid. I like the stretch in mono. Fluorocarbon also has stretch, and there's different times to use different lines. For swim baiting, I'm just going to stick to mono. And so with that, I use P-Line CXX. Okay, so that's extra strong. I use 25 pound, and it works. Like, it has just done a great job. I probably won't switch. I've used big game before, and I've always gone back to P-Line extra strong, 25 pound. That way with the big lures that I'm using, works just fine. It's awesome, and I'm able to do that. If I'm fishing muskies, I'm going to switch to braid. You know, I will definitely switch to braid because a lot bigger fish, probably use 65 to 85 pound braid. But if I'm fishing my swim baits, I'm going to fish mono. What you can do is if you're fishing, if you want to fish deeper, fluorocarbon obviously sinks, mono stays towards the top, and then also braid stays toward the top as well. So if you want to get a little bit deeper with your swim baits, fish fluorocarbon. But me personally, that's the choice that I like is P-Line, and so I'm going to stick to that. Guys, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm more than willing to help you out. I'm not a genius by any means. I'm just telling you what's worked for me. And so hopefully, guys, you learned something today. You can get some new gear out there and hopefully stick a big fish. Swim baits work. I've fished them for the last 3 or 4 years, and I've caught the biggest fish of my life fishing swim baits. So hopefully, guys, this helps you out. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed. Also, whoops, Merry Christmas. I got to take that Christmas tree down soon because, well, it's January. All right. Have a great one, guys. We'll see you.